In a world full of challenges, it's easy to see obstacles, but here on the Mindset Spot, we see opportunities. Each week, we bring ideas that transform these challenges into opportunities for a better world, empowering the youth and the young at heart to think right, to do right, and increase a sustainable future. Welcome to the Mindset Spot. Believe in yourself and transform the world.
Welcome to the Mindset Sport, the place where we share ideas and debate aspects that can be able to help turn challenges to opportunities, environmental challenges, food security issues, to developmental transformation that can make our youth to think right and do right. Today, we're going to discuss the topic that is quite an enlightening discussion that we should be able to tackle head on. We are diving into a topic that affects many, from the world of sports to education and to the world of work to our daily lives. The mentality of entitlement is the aspect we'll discuss today. It's a mindset that could hold us back, but it's one we can defeat, and that is what we're about to do today. And I'm joined by my host, as always, Daniel from Bomunang. So we discuss this. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. It's been a while, but we're ready, and I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, indeed. It is an exciting conversation to have, and the mentality of entitlement can be a silent inhibitor. And therefore, it's crucial today that we have this conversation because by understanding and addressing it, we can foster personal growth, we can foster stronger teamwork, and of course, foster healthier perspective on challenges and opportunities. And so, let me start off with this. So, what for those who might not be familiar, what exactly do you think is entitlement mentality?
Well, I think that entitlement mentality to me is just the sense of wanting or like sense of believing that everything you have is a right, not a privilege. And I think that's a simple way to describe it. But I think you would be more suited because you've worked with various types of people to further describe and elaborate on what entitlement is to you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the reality is that this issue of entitlement, as we keep talking, the entitlement mentality is when an individual believes that they own something without necessarily earning or deserving it, that somebody owes them something. And it's the belief that one deserves privileges or recognition without putting the effort or understanding the complexities involved. So it's a mindset of I deserve this, right? I deserve this, I need this, I want this, without the question of have I earned it? And therefore, that mentality of entitlement becomes very dangerous because people want to get what they don't deserve, what they've not put effort into. And therefore, that has become quite a very dangerous aspect that we need to debug because if not, then people will not be able to put in the effort to work hard, to put in the effort to deserve what they're supposed to deserve, to be able to then know that before they complain, they need to ask, what is my role in this and in playing that? So, Afu, having said that, with the world in which we are today, do you think that entitlement mentality has done good or bad?
Well, I think that it's done way more harm than good because I believe that with the entitlement mentality, it alongside people thinking that they deserve things, they also think that they shouldn't be doing things, which also means that less people are contributing to society, which means that less problems are being solved. So I think that because of this, the entitlement mentality has brought more harm to the table because it enabled people to think that they're better than the environment or they're better than their community so they don't have to do certain things such as um, trying to be a positive impact towards the community and the environment.
Yes, indeed. And one of the issues that is coming out very clear is that the way the attitude is manifesting is one in which it's stifling progress. Because let's take someone who believes that they should be uh, given something even if they've not put effort. Let's take players, for example, right? We say in a team of 22, 24 players, regardless, think of a player who believes that they should be in the starting lineup without showing commitment in the training. And this is dangerous because then, without showing commitment in the training, or an athlete who wants endorsement without first achieving significant milestones. So the world of sports, for example, if I was to use that, without first achieving significant milestones, success then becomes missing because the world of sport is competitive. And success is often a result of hard work, dedication, and teamwork. And entitlement can be a barrier to these core values. So when it comes to education, when it comes to effort, music, when it comes to every domain in life, without dedication and effort and wanting to be promoted even when you've not put in the biggest work might really be a problem. So what I want to ask you Afu, is why should anyone, teams or even individuals be wary of this mindset of entitlement? Why is this a concern for anyone that entitlement is a make or break and it's destroying society, especially for the young people? What would you say for yourself and others are there?
Well, I think that the entitled mentality can be damaging because realistically, not everybody's gonna feed your, I guess we can call them delusions, on you believing that you're better, or you bring more to the table when in reality you don't. However, I think that although it's good to know your worth, there's a difference between knowing your worth and entitlement. And when it turns into entitlement, because not everybody's gonna fulfill that, that's gonna lead to a lot of problems in the future, such as unnecessary arguments and just thinking that, oh, why is this person getting this and I'm not? And I think that it'll also lead to lack of opportunities because there's going to be so many opportunities that you need to work for. But if you believe that they should be handed to you, then you're not going to be able to achieve those.
Absolutely. And I think for those who are joining in now, we are discussing the mindset of entitlement. And we'll take a break. And when we come back, we're going to dive into how can we start to debunk this mindset of entitlement that seems to be taking away opportunities from many. We'll be right back.
In a world full of challenges, it's easy to see obstacles. But here on the Mindset Spot, we see opportunities. Each week, we bring ideas that transform these challenges into opportunities for a better world, empowering the youth and the young at heart to think right, to do right, and increase a sustainable future. Welcome to the Mindset Spot. Believe in yourself and transform the world.
Welcome back to the Mindset Sport. And for those of you who are just joining in now, we're discussing the topic, the mindset of entitlement. And we are saying that entitlement can create a discord. Yes, that when an individual feels entitled, they may neglect teamwork, they may disregard feedback, and even underperform, believing they will be rewarded regardless, which is a very terrible mentality that is drawing back our young people and even those who are young at heart. And it's not only affecting their personal growth, but can also destabilize team dynamics. And moreover, it can limit one's ability to adapt, learn, and evolve. And as usual, I'm having this discussion today with my co-host Afumbom Daniel Munang, and what we are discussing is how do we then make sure that the attitude of entitlement, that I need this, even if I have not deserved to be able to get that. How do we debug the attitude of entitlement, especially in the youth? They want to rise to the top without putting the effort. They want to be given money. They want to be given everything. Most of them, not all, but sometimes they're not even listening to guidance. What says you?
I think before I answer that, we have a comment from LinkedIn. Please pull that up. We have one from Elio Ual, and
Right.
they say entitlement mentality is a disease as I'm concerned. Imagine having the sense of ownership of what you have no idea of how it's formed or where it comes from.
Right. What's your take?
I think that's a good point, and I think that imagine if you think that you have everything, but in reality you don't know that the people who created these things that you quote unquote deserve actually put in work. So I think that he brought a good point.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aliu, for joining in, and thanks for providing that perspective. That's very true, and it is a very unfortunate situation that we find us, and that's why I'm discussing this topic, because the entitlement mentality, that somebody just thinks that he or she can then just have what they think they can have without putting in the effort, the dedication, the patience, the kindness, the resilience, right? The ability to be able to endure some short-term pain before long-term gain is really a serious problem. And let me just get back to this, and I really want to hear a perspective. You said before we get to that, let's read this. We read that with the attitude of people wanting to have what they have not worked for because of laziness and because of lack of putting effort, and effort is seen as punishment. People get up, they don't fix their bed, yet they want to be leaders when they cannot even lead themselves. They want to have what they have not produced, and they don't even want to be part of the process, but they love the product. To the young people who are watching, and to even those who are young at heart, to what extent, if this mentality persists, are we going to have a society that is just there waiting for others to do? Or what do you see as the repercussions for these?
I think that you brought up a good point, and I think that you're correct in the sense that if everybody has that mentality, then who are going to be the doers? Who are going to be
Absolutely.
the doers of society? And if nobody's going to be the doers, society isn't going to develop the way it's supposed to be. So
Hmm.
I think that you brought in a good point. And if it continues this way, then the repercussions will be detrimental to society in the continent and around the world because African youth take up they're almost the majority of the youth on the planet. And without a proper mindset, that can impact not only them, but people across the world through interactions and a chain reaction.
Absolutely. And that is a very important point that needs now to take us to how can we identify if we are harboring this mentality? And I think the young people and those who are young at heart watching this across the world, the most important aspect that we need to now talk is how can someone introspect and identify if they're leaning towards entitlement mentality or if they're living with entitlement mentality. And the key point that is so important at the moment is self-awareness. People need to ask themselves, do I get what I deserve? Do you ask for things and at the same time ask yourself, what do I deserve to get what I am asking for? And so regularly asking oneself, am I expecting rewards without effort? Am I disregarding constructive feedback? Do I find myself often feeling restless or resentful when not recognized? These reflective questions can shed light on any underlying entitlement feelings. And therefore, it becomes very, very important for everyone to introspect and ask the question, are you part of the solution or part of the problem? Are you complaining and blaming people, expecting others to do it so that you claim credit? And therefore, this now takes me to the point, Afu, before I hand over to you, which is, what do you think of the society of today, when the blame game becomes easier and the responsibility to be able to take charge and steer things forward seems to be slipping away because everybody wants, I want it to be done, I want it to be done. And then the I, instead of me, instead of replacing me, this is me and this is what I can do, seems to always be about someone else. Do you think that society is heading in the right direction?
I think I have a few analogies for this. The first analogy, back to the sports analogy. Let's use the example of swimming. Let's say you
All right.
want to be an Olympic swimmer like Michael Phelps. However, you've never even touched a swimming pool in your life. The closest you got to water is your bathtub, and and you want to be a pro Olympic swimmer. Obviously, that's not going to work. And when that happens, you're going to be like, "Oh, I'll disadvantage this and that." But it comes back to what the point is that when people who have this mentality face struggles along the way, it comes back to the other mentality which we talked about in the previous episode, blame game. So then I think with this chain, because entitlement, obviously, if you don't get what you believe you're entitled to, then you're going to blame other people for it. Oh, do they not know who I am? Do they not know the potential that I have, without necessarily showing it? Or, oh, do you know who my father is? Like that, those type of languages that really do more harm than good, because some of these people, they have the potential to be great, but because they'd rather tap into other stuff than their own ideas or their own personal development, this mentality unfortunately occurs. So I think that society, if it keeps up in this direction, it's not looking nice. However, I still think that there's a lot of people currently changing after they've realized the setbacks with that mentality. And I think that if we continue to push positive mindset rather than negative, and instead of normalizing negative mindsets, then we'll be good. But if that isn't the case, then I think that society in particular will face a lot of problems, because if everybody thinks they're entitled, then who is really deserving of it?
Absolutely, that's a very good point. Now, there is someone on LinkedIn who is watching, and his name is Rina Sharif. She said, "May I know entitlement? May I know entitlement to what is being discussed here?" Yeah, the comment is not here, but I can see it from my mobile
Mhm.
here. So she said, "May I know to what is being discussed on an entitlement here? Can you briefly tell what we're discussing?"
So we're basically, thanks for tuning in. And we're basically discussing what is entitlement and how it can impact us in many more ways than we think. And on top of that, how to combat that and switch from an entitled mindset to a positive mindset that includes things such as working hard and other factors that we'll later discuss. So as you're already here, that's a good first step, and just expect the unexpected as we continue to delve in for the next 10-15 minutes or so.
Excellent, Afu. So now over to you as the co-host of this. Take it forward.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here as it's been a while, but we're back. Although it's not Saturday, we're still here, we're still standing. And I think that a question for you, you worked in many various areas along science, policy, education. So I'm wondering, how do you deal with entitled individuals, whether it's students, colleagues, or just people you come across? Do you educate them or do you just let them be? Because it's obvious that working in a continent full of billions of people, you have obviously encountered many people. So what do you do in situations like that? And this can
Yeah,
also
very
be good to
important.
other people who are dealing in a work situation where people who they work with or their fellow classmates are acting iffy and they don't know what to do. So what do you do, and what do you advise people who are going through difficult work or classroom environments?
Yeah, thank you again, for the very important and timely question. So the reality is that the attitude of entitlement somehow is arrived at as a result of lack of knowledge and awareness to be able to make community and society know that you cannot eat if you haven't labored, and that there is no free lunch. And therefore, because there's no free lunch, when you deserve something and you don't get it, is far more better than getting something you don't deserve. Because when you deserve and you don't get, and you continue working hard, you will get it. And then when you get it, that's one point. But the other aspect is, will you be able to show and excel in excellence if you got that? And so wanting to get something when you've not worked for is actually the beginning of failure, because you become a disaster when you get it. You get promotions when you don't know the job. You get rewarded when you have not actually excel and become excellent in that. Then definitely you'll be creating a buffoonery of your own self, because then you cannot be able to defend that. That said, the message has been consistent. I think I've been consistent for over 15 years on this very issue, that you can only get what you don't have by using what you have. And what you have is yourself, is your skill. To be able then to voluntarily volunteer yourself and retool your skill is the first step of you owning a process, learning a skill to do something that can be able to touch lives and help you to be able to build value. And therefore, to your question of, yes, engaging with students, engaging with professionals across the board, from education to environment to policy, etc., it's consistent that we cannot be able to get what we don't have by hoping and elusively hoping that it will happen by miracles. No, we must play our part. And to play our part, we need to voluntarily volunteer ourselves and cultivate the attitude of service, the attitude of excellence, and more importantly, taking initiative even when we've not been asked to do so, to do right, to solve problems and lead. And with that, cultivating that work attitude, that attitude of solving problems, then definitely anything you get or anything you are given will never be deserving, because you must be part and parcel and have to exact where you have contributed to that process. Without that, then it will all be something that cannot be sustainable. Over.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I think that before we looked back to the comments and potentially the wrap up, I have another question. So,
Yeah.
in your life, you obviously did not have the silver spoon, as people across the globe call it. So, how did you manage to come through a path where many people? How did you manage to feel? How did you feel sitting at the same table as people who maybe did have privilege throughout their way to success? And we're not saying privilege is a bad thing, because if you're born with it, you're born with it. If you have connections, you have connections. But in situations where you don't have those things, there's not necessarily a reason to fake it. Well, that's what we're trying to say, number one. And if number two, if you do have those things, it's just be aware of them and be aware of your privilege. That's the only two things we're trying to say. But how did you feel getting to sit at the same table as some of these people when you literally came from nothing?
Very important question. And I think what actually helped me is the fact that self-believing in the ability that regardless of whether you have or not, you can be able to get it if you work hard. And I think the advice from parents, the advice from my grandmother, that you have to work hard to get what you don't have. And therefore, what I started to notice was that in school, as I started working hard, I started to take first in class. I started to beat even those who were from rich families. And there is nothing wrong from anybody coming from a rich family or from a poor family. That's not the point here. The point is that we are all the same, with the same potential and ability. And all we need is to self believe that we can be best. And when we believe we are best and put in the effort, put in the time to make sure that at least we get the best from ourselves, we will try on in whatever thing we do. And I think that that ability of understanding that coming from nowhere, but having the ability to be able to work hard and be the best, that self-belief made a difference. But more importantly, what many people make the mistake is that they do want to focus on the end product rather than on the journey. The journey is so important. The journey is where it all starts, because we must focus on the journey and focus on the hard work, focus on the lessons that we're learning and the failures that we're encountering throughout the journey are what makes us to become stronger and self-believe in what we do, rather than just the end reward. And therefore, the self-belief, recognizing that one can be able to do it, even if he or she fails, and focusing on the journey, the hard work, the lessons, rather than the end reward, is actually what made the difference. And the more important point is seeking feedback, because feedback sometimes is seen by young people as if it is some kind of negative energy that is generated. No, every feedback is important, because what I notice is that regularly seeking feedback and be open to constructive feedback, even if it is not constructive, try to understand what is in it and pick it. That can be able to make a big difference. And I think one of the other aspects that make me and still makes me today is the self-belief that you cannot forget your roots. Remember your roots, where you come from. And I think that is my strength. My strength is knowing that I'm that little boy, that boy, common boy from Jinquin, who teetered goats and went to school without shoes. Understanding that, yes, that is not a hindrance, but it gives me that motivation to be able to do better. And remembering your roots, your initial struggles, and always remaining grounded on that can make you to go anywhere in the world. Because I don't really bother much whether anybody is more intelligent than me or not. I care how do I construct my message in a way that never ever leave those at that grassroots, no matter where I am on any stage, to connect back to them. That gives me my strength. That gives me the power. It tells me of my initial struggles, but at the same time keeps me grounded on reality. And that is the extra force that helps me to navigate and get through everything, regardless of where it is. Over.
Yeah, that's a really brilliant point. And for those of you guys who are watching, always remember where you came from. Because if you don't know where you came from, you can't possibly know where you're going. So those are all the questions I have. And the viewers, we have another comment from Aliu Alwal who says, "From what I learned from this thread, is that the more your actions and efforts speak louder than your words, the further you distance yourself from the entitlement attitudes." So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think Aliu is spot on, and thank you, Aliu, for staying through and watching this very interesting discussion, which in the next 5-10 minutes will be running up. But this is the point. You are very right from saying what you've said. That from what you are learning from this conversation today is that the more your actions and efforts they then speak louder than your words, then the far you distance yourself from entitlement. Absolutely. What I've noticed is that the core and cause of entitlement is as a result of the attitude that somebody owes or something. And I've argued in so many instances, and I'll keep arguing this, no one owes anyone anything. If anyone comes up, mentors you, it is not his right to do so. If you have your dad and your mom and he or she helps you, it is not necessary. If they don't do it, what will you do? So the point I always tell young people is that appreciate them, thank them, so that they can do more. And there is a saying that appreciation can bring the best out of a human, and he or she can even do more. And therefore, what Aliu is saying is quite very, very correct. But to build on that and put in perspective is that the attitude of thinking that people owe anyone anything actually dissuades. But the fact that people have the attitude that if something is not given to them, even whether they earn it or not, then it means that they've not reached where they're supposed to be. The entitlement mentality actually draws you back and makes you not to put in the effort, not to be able to work hard enough. Because if you do everything just for a reward, the day you will not get a reward, you feel discouraged. That's why my argument, especially for the young people, do it not necessarily just because you'll be rewarded, because in the long run, your excellence will always be recognized by someone elsewhere. That's what I'm learning in my career. Whether you're rewarded where you are or not, it doesn't really matter. What matters is what you do that touches other people's lives positively. Is that ability for you to stand and inspire others. And even if you are not recognized in your immediate environment, one day, not far from now, you will be recognized. And your recognition may come just as a surprise. And so when you stay to do right, think right, help inspire others, contribute to community, society, goodwill, you will succeed. And so thinking that because you don't have now, because you are not given, should become the energy and your fuel to push you forward. You should become passionate and know that it is not in everything that you do that you will even be appreciated, that a thank you will even come. No, that's not how the world works. Sometimes the best are not always recognized. But the truth is that the best will always be recognized in the long run. So keep being who you are, do your best, work hard, stay humble, be kind, be selfless, but always understand that in the course of doing that, if it's not turning challenges to opportunities and inspiring others, definitely you need to recalibrate. Powerful.
Excellent answer. And as we're wrapping up now, I think that thank you guys for all of you guys who've watched, and we hope that you've learned some. You've picked up some nuggets on confronting and overcoming entitlement. And as we go now, I'd just like to say that it doesn't matter where you come from, and just remember that the process is not as important as the outcome. And I think that by being transparent and by having a fundamental sense of self, then we can limit this attitude and shift towards a more positive and a more real rather than fictitious mindset that we've seen over the past decades.
Thank you very much, Afu, and it's always a pleasure to have you as a co-host on the Mindset Sport. And for those of you who have joined in now and have been watching all through, this has been an insightful discussion. Yes, it is. And it's evident that understanding and combating entitlement mentality is very, very essential for both individuals and collective growth. And this is timely, and I decided that we discuss this today because let's remember, entitlement can be a silent chain holding us back. Yes, it can be holding many people back. And by confronting and defeating it, we open doors to genuine success. We open doors to deeper and personal fulfillment. And to our listeners, wherever you are, stay aware, stay grounded, and continue to grow. Until then, let's keep evolving. Bye bye.
See you guys next time.
See you next time.